Perfect is being. It is the body that has seeming imperfections, subject as it is to birth, growth, decay, death, and the various faults of its activities. Perfect is the inner consciousness. It is only seeming thoughts that can appear as if imperfect. Perfect is realization. It is only the imagination of another state that gives the false sense of imperfection. The imperfect can never actually be tied to the perfect. Otherwise, the perfect would not be perfect. It would be stained, it would be marred or flawed in some way. Perfection is by itself eternal, infinite, the self itself, and invariably what it is. There is no other beside it. Perfection is realized by the perfection itself. The perfect alone is. Nothing other than itself can rise from itself. Because it is invariable, actually nothing arises. But if we speak of something appearing, arising, etc., from the perfect, only the perfect can be. If it is only the perfect, we again return to its invariable nature. So that in truth nothing appears, nothing arises, just perfection, infinite, eternal, unborn, uncreated, indestructible, phaseless and conditionless is. That perfection is the self. Realization of this is self-knowledge. One time, Sadhu Arunachala, also known as Major Chadwick, was speaking to the Maharshi, raising some doubts and questions he was having about reality and unreality and the waking and dreaming states, and how to examine them to determine what is real and what is unreal. At one point in the conversation, the Maharshi responded to him saying, "You are attempting to discern or to know the unlimited from the limited. This cannot be done. You must be the unlimited to know the unlimited. The unlimited is the perfect, the real self. You must be that in order to know that. Being is not an action. It is not an injunction to do something. Otherwise the question arises, well, how do I be the perfect, or how do I be the unlimited? Such would imply an imperfect entity, called an ego, an individual, attempting to become the perfect. But he said you must be it, not become it. What is being implied here? The perfect can alone know the perfect. Brahman alone knows Brahman. The self alone can know itself. Nobody else can do so. The point of the Maharshi's statement is you are not somebody else trying to know the perfect self. Self-inquiry reveals the innate, that you are the self. It is not a transformation of yourself into the self. but realizing in a state of inner knowledge the self as the only identity, the only true I. The one who now seeks to know the self or to attain liberation. Who is he? If that one will remove the imagined bondage, the liberation is already attained. If the unrealized individual inquires as to what his nature is, the realized self will be found to be the only thing existing. The unlimited will know the unlimited. Is it clear to you what is being indicated? So then when you practice a method of inquiry, who am I? What is occurring is a resolution into truth, a dissolution of the false sense of individuality, so that in realizing the self, the triadic illusion of knower, knowing, and known entirely vanishes. It vanishes because it is unreal. The unlimited knows the unlimited. The unlimited is the consciousness which is itself the knowledge. The unlimited is absolute being, and unlimited is the self that so realizes. What is to be done then by way of spiritual practice? A steady, penetrating, profound inquiry to know who you are. Seeking to know the self, you inquire as to who you are. And in doing so, you yourself come to be the self that you wish to know. And what you wish to know is what you are. The knower, the knowing, and the known, the realizer, the realizing, and that which is to be realized, all resolve into a single thing. That single thing is the infinite and the eternal, and it is the perfect. Then, what knowledge rises from the perfect? Only the perfect knowledge of the perfect arises from the perfect. It is full. The signs or characteristics of the illusion of another state, other than that perfect fullness of the real self, is such as the false sense of being bound or limited in some way, starting from the notion of an I to thinking you're bound by any thought, defined by any thought, or defined in terms of the body, misidentified with the body. Consequent on such misidentification comes suffering, attachment, and all the rest of samsara. The characteristic signs of turning inward is the dissolution of all that was just mentioned. Therefore, inquire within yourself, who am I? Coming to know yourself, perfection alone is. We do not manufacture or newly compose the perfect. Indeed, if you want to realize the perfect, if you want that perfect state for yourself, look at the imperfect. Wherever there is bondage or suffering, look at what is seemingly imperfect. That is, whatever limited identity. If you examine the limited identity, it falls away as being false. It was maintained only due to lack of inquiry. When you inquire to see, can I be this body? Can I be this thought? This mental tendency? Can I be this? Can this be my nature? Your connection with it, upon such examination, vanishes. It is like light being used to examine darkness. The darkness vanishes wherever you put the light. The result? The unlimited, the perfect, it remains. If you have a question this morning, or you wish to relate your own experience, at any point, feel free to do so.
As I am inquiring, I'm continuing to look at inquiry at what feels like individual and trying to look at that more directly. From one standpoint, I have to say that it's a little discouraging, or seems discouraging, because when I look at that, then one of the things I notice, kind of immediately is still, for me, this sense of being the sensory being at the center of the senses. And having worked on that for a while back, I felt like I had more freedom, but in fact, when I'm really honest and look deeply, I notice exactly there, I still feel bound by the sense of being a sensory being. Sometimes when I meditate, though, I'm also still able to look and see this individual or seeming individual, and then ask, who knows this individual? And of course, when I take that tack in meditation, then it's not remotely frustrating. You've said many times that you have to be thorough. And certainly the sense that I have as I'm doing this is that more thoroughness is called for, I guess, because again, when I go through and look at the reality of the illusions, I see here is this sensory being illusion that is real noticeable.
The first thing that should be comprehended, if you wish to transcend the seeming present state, is nothing disappointing or frustrating in being able to perceive some tendency of ignorance, some continuing delusion. If you do not perceive it and go on living in it, that could be frustrating. Yes.
Okay.
What you can perceive, you can step beyond.
Yes.
Isn't that so?
Yes.
So in one sense, you may say, I have more work cut out for me. But it's joyous work. It's not work at all. It's liberating yourself. The ability to perceive the presently appearing delusion is the doorway to your freedom or liberation. So from now on, whenever you perceive some, be it a misidentification, some kind of tendency, some kind of attachment, you might as well rejoice rather than be frustrated, because now you can actually address it more thoroughly than you did before.
Yes.
Even if you have visited something once and gained a certain degree of freedom, and then upon re-examination you say, well, actually I'm misidentifying this way still many other times. Good. That means many more times the freedom is going to be yours. That's the first thing to be comprehended. The second thing to be comprehended is just this. You're speaking of being a sensing entity, someone who's at the center of all the senses. Ask yourself directly, is that true? Are you a sensing entity? Right now, do you feel like you're a sensing entity?
Well, it's funny it's funny you should ask. As I look at it, there are two things that occurs at once. One is, it seems like it, but then at the same time, there is this distance where I'm looking at this sense of being a sensing entity, and where I look at being a sensing entity is obviously not the sensing entity.
All right. So, as you're speaking about this right now, you can know the senses, what is seen, what's heard, etc.
Yes.
You also know the seeing or the hearing. It's more subtle than the thing seen, but you know if seeing is occurring or not.
Yes.
Just as if you open or close your eyes. The one who knows about that He's not the senses.
Yes.
He's not even the mental cognition of the senses, which includes the idea of being located somehow spatially in relation to them.
Yes.
Because you're aware of that.
Yes.
And you cannot be what you're aware of.
Yes.
This is clear?
Yes.
So where is the sensing entity?
The sensing entity is still something in the imagination that seems like it's known, that there still is this knower that is always present, regardless of what is happening with sensing or not sensing.
So there's this perpetually existing knower who's not anything seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelled, nor anything cognized
Yes.
in thought.
Yes.
And that one in you is seeing or knowing all these
Yes.
senses come and go. And he's also knowing all these thoughts about the senses coming and going, including the idea, the fictional notion, that his identity is now somehow becoming tied to the object portion. The not being tied, it's a knot of illusion, is that the knower is what is known, that the self is what is sensed, or what is thought of in terms of the senses. You can cut that knot just by making the same simple inquiry we're doing in this conversation. But be thorough with it. You know about your senses only when you're awake. Isn't that true?
And when I'm dreaming, I still have dream senses.
You have dream senses.
Of course.
So they correspond to the particular state of mind.
Yes, of course.
And when your mind's in deep dreamless sleep, there's no sense activity.
No sense.
So what you're referring to as senses is really a kind of mental activity, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Again, that's very clear.
Then you never have sense activity. It's just a particular way of the mind.
Yes, yes.
You have thoughts that are abstract and thoughts that are seemingly concrete. The ones that are seemingly concrete, you call your senses. It's just a mode of mind. The entire universe then is in your mind.
Yes.
If the entire universe is in your mind, where are you located? Since you are the knower of the mind. Meditate upon that until that vast truth so strikes home that you never take up residence in such a transient thing again.
Much of the time there's a sense of reality that I'm aware of on one level or another. And that sense of reality seems to kind of mess up the foundation of the individual that the individual's resting upon. And so you have this structure of an individual on a very bad foundation that's very wobbly, and there's a lot of confusion from that perspective there. The individual not knowing what to do and what's going on. And there used to be focus or intensity from that individual in the practice. And it's kind of missing now. Like he's still there, but there's nothing for him to do, or unfocused for what he's having to do.
What do you mean by he's still there, but there's nothing for him to do?
Well, that reality seems to be readily available just within, and that silence is there.
What of the individual, though? Which one are you?
Well, speaking, wishing, going away, it has
And the individual is himself, his own confusion. He's the source of it. He's the container of it. He alone suffers in it. And if by any means he can subside, a blessed state without confusion will shine. How are you going to get the individual to disappear?
There's a feeling that some structure in relationship to the world is necessary. In other words, these preconceived ideas, and that being without that, everything's kind of blown apart, wide open, and no one's in control. And that goes against a lot of the things that individual was, some of the pieces of wood construction.
Does the individual control the world?
You should just
The whole world?
compartmentalize everything to some kind of logical, that this is the way it works, and that's not.
How would the individual control the world? Let's start off from basics. Did he choose the moment of his birth?
He imagines that there's some kind of structure that he has a part in all this.
What is his part?
It's a very small part, but it's important to him.
How small? Considering the eons and the universe as a whole, just exactly what is the significance of the individual?
Well, that's another part of it, is that the reality is just so immense and just so unfathomable and wondrous that the individual says, no, I can't be. I mean, it's too good. It's just, it's just.
Is that individual you?
Well, it's the one who's asking the question, but it's not the one who's aware of it.
Are there two of you? Go on inquiring into the singular sense of existence, and you will see what the value, the worth, the importance, the significance, the power, the size, etc. of the individual is. If he's all important, ruler of the world, certainly this will be self-evident to you. If he is not the ruler of the entire universe, this will also become self-evident. If he does not count at all in the whole scheme of things, this will become obvious. There is no sense talking about the individual as if he were an established institution that goes by its own power, having its being self-existent, that it's another entity with an awareness or knowledge of its own. All of that is, in one sense, theoretical. Just find out who you are. Then we'll see if there's an individual to plague you. Or the rest of the universe. Put the question again, more deeply than before, to yourself. Who am I? So that you realize the singular existence, which can neither be an object nor an individual, which has no duality in it. Not even so much as the dualism of I plus the absolute.
Well, when the individual saw the silence and wide open feeling and everything's fine.
Yes, in the silence in which there's no I, it's perfect.
And then after that, that individual says, there must be something wrong.
How can the individual arise from the silence? How can the imperfect arise from the perfect? You see the direction to inquire?
Yeah.
No one obligated you to be a spokesperson for the ego. You don't have to explain. You don't have to explain him, excuse him, come up with theories of his existence, his potency, etc.
Staying power.
His staying power. Right. All you need to do is find out who you are, and that ghost-like illusion vanishes.
During the retreat, you mentioned that we should start looking at patterns of thoughts that we live by. And so I've been looking at that, and I can see these, it looks like little sections of patterns of thought that I identify with. And the thing I was wondering about, especially when I've been hearing people talk about identity, was that it seems like if you look at your patterns of thoughts and what you take action in, if you start watching it and you start pulling out your identity out of that whole section of thought, say I thought of being a mother or a wife or grandma or whatever. Look at it and see it to be just thoughts. Remove my identity from that. And so, it just seems like if you keep doing that, then eventually you get to a point that there is no identity. There is no separate individual, because if you're identifying with, say, these patterns of thought, well then what you're doing is creating an individual. So you would, once you sit and you stop identifying with it, well then it seems as though eventually in your meditation there would be no individual left at all.
The individual or ego is a falsehood.
Yeah.
It's a superstition. God is the reality. The ego is the superstition. People who believe in the existence of an ego are just being superstitious. They're attributing power and existence to something that doesn't exist and has no power. Since it's a sure, okay, fiction. Since it's a fiction, since it's a vacuum and there's nothing to it, since it's an absence, what gives it a semblance of being solid? The Maharshi says vasanas, tendencies. The tendencies are composed of various thoughts. When those vasanas or thoughts are repeated, such is a tendency. So that if you just have a random thought at one moment, aside from the tendency to be random in your thinking, there's not much of a tendency to that. When you think the same pattern again and again, and you give it reality, you give it identity, and you think that something about happiness or peace is connected to it, there you have a vasana or tendency. The Maharshi says you must destroy all the vasanas or tendencies in order for there to be liberation. So when you examine these tendencies, these various identities, what happens? You're taking away all the supports or the attire wrapped around, the clothing wrapped around this empty thing, this phantom. It becomes apparent to you as you're taking off the tendencies as swiftly and thoroughly as you can that there's no one in the center of them. Either it becomes evident, or because you have taken away the tendencies, then the inquiry, who am I, penetrates right to the core, right to the heart, and it becomes obvious what you really are. So the destruction of tendencies is everywhere recommended. It's inherent in the inquiry. You're asking yourself, who am I? Can you be a mother or grandmother? Not really. Someone is taking on all the clothing, all the identity. That one is none of the clothing, none of the identities that way.
It's like playing an actor.
You're the actress and you're playing all the parts.
Yeah.
Now, if she finds out that she's not any of these parts and ceases to be the actress in that way, will the play go on?
No, the play won't go on because there's no one there to play it.
So if the identity is clarified, the tendency won't be there, and the various actions that were coming forth from ignorance will no longer be occurring. Rather, there is knowledge based on the truth, and everything that's true, good, and beautiful will be manifesting, but you yourself will be remaining transcendent of such manifestation.
I can see the mistake in my meditations before. I'm not looking at the tendencies or patterns of thought, but trying to look within to see the reality. But the way to see the reality is to remove the misidentification with the underworld.
This is understanding the instruction more deeply. That's why such emphasis is placed on negation in the inquiry. You negate what is not the self, and the self knows itself. It remains as the residuum. It was the substrate all the time. When we move the covering, the residuum is, it's already there, known by itself. We don't attain the self is already attained. It is already existent. We simply remove the confusion of mistaking the self to be what is not the self. I with what is not I. Destroy the tendencies. And you destroy them so easily, simply by inquiring and examining. There is really no difficulty in this. The difficulty or solidity or the grip it seems to have on you at any one point is only prior to the commencement of actually inquiring. When you inquire and examine, whatever the obstacle, however tenacious the grip seems to be, dissolves.
Yeah. So that's where freedom comes in, because you can be able to see it. Let go.
By the time you are perceiving that this is a misidentification, or this is something that's a mental tendency from which you need to liberate yourself, by the time you can see that much, you're already on your way. Because you're treating it as something objective and no longer as yourself. Now just finish cutting the knot. Clear for you?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
How to increase our devotion towards merging into the self? For example, I read scriptures pretty much every day. Think about it every moment. And try to do the mantras. And even if I'm working, still I try to keep it in the background. But still, how to take it to the infinite, towards the merging?
Just the yearning you're expressing now will bring that about in due course. You are doing all these good things, and yet something is not quite satisfied. You yearn for something infinite, something more. That yearning will make itself come true. Let that yearning be very strong. It should be like a fire.
I'm not getting to that point. it's not like a fire. It's just like it comes on and off. Sometimes intensity is pretty strong, but most of the time it is not.
But it has at least risen to the point that you now ask this question.
The question is going on for quite some time.
So it has some enduring power. What is being pointed out is what is generating the present line of questioning, that yearning, is already has root in you. It's not possible to accurately measure it while one is engaged in practice. But by the time that it causes you to raise such questions, to approach this kind of teaching, to give yourself to it, to read scripture, to keep this in mind, by the time it is doing that, it is already doing its work. Let the yearning just keep growing naturally, and take what you read in the scriptures and attempt to verify it within yourself. The prime method of verifying the truth of the scriptures is self-knowledge or self-inquiry. So in meditation, attempt to see where what the scriptures are describing is true in you. When you do so, some discrepancy will appear. Let us say you're reading a scripture and it describes the nature of the Atman or Brahman, the infinite, the eternal, etc. You will attempt then in meditation to find what in you is infinite, eternal, and so forth and so on. You may find some discrepancy. You may feel within yourself, I do not yet feel the infinite. I know the infinite is, but I don't feel infinite, but the scriptures are telling me that you are the infinite. What is causing me to be apparently finite? Because of the yearning inside yourself to be the infinite, you'll become ruthless in the destruction of the finite, which means ruthless in the destruction of we were just speaking of this, the ignorant tendencies, the vasanas, that perpetuate the illusion of being a finite being, a limited jiva, when actually you're Brahman. The yearning is there, give it full scope. You are familiar with the method of inquiry, put it fully into practice. If there's great desire for realization, to be the infinite, to merge with it, and you're blessed with knowledge of the inquiry, how to proceed, then you're well equipped. Use what you have. Is it clear what direction to follow?
Also, I have one more. Every time I go to Trunamai, Arunachala, I can't make much difference between a normal hill like Santa Cruz and Arunachala hill. There is something wrong in that, how I perceive things.
No, just attend to the self, and the significance of Arunachala, of Shiva, etc. become obvious.
I'm trying that, but it's not going far enough to differentiate.
It is not essential that you have a particular experience when being at Tirvannamalai. That's not essential. The Maharshi has pointed out, where is Tirvannamalai? Isn't it in the same self as all else? That self is what ought to be known. Again, he has pointed out in one of his verses, Aruna stand for being consciousness bliss. That being consciousness bliss that is unmoving, Achala, that is what is to be known. If that is to be known, that Arunachala, Shiva, will be shining as he says in another verse, I, within your own heart. Even if you never see the hill again. There is the outer manifestation or outer symbol, there's the inner significance. If we understand, if we have a particular experience with the outer symbol, it is all right. If we know the inner significance of the outer symbol, this is what's so important. And if we realize ourselves to be that inner significance by a path of self-knowledge, then you're at the very origin of that symbol. You are yourself the symbolized. That is the state at which to point yourself. That's the pilgrimage to make. If you realize yourself to be that immovable self about which all the universes spin, that's the pradakshina. If you realize your nature to be that consciousness which has no beginning or end, no top or bottom, but which is ever shining, with a light that cannot be grasped by any mind or senses, then you yourself are Arunachala, that infinite column of light. Or you've merged with that. The whole point is subsidence of the false sense of a limited individual, so that the perfect, the unlimited, alone remains. Go on diving within. Everything you need, you'll find there.
I wanted to clarify my understanding of the way I was listening to some of your responses a little earlier. What it brought to mind was, if I could make a quick comparison, in science they look at nature, and for convenience they break it down into pieces, but it's always said to be very important to remember that that's your mental device, and that those pieces don't really have separate identity in themselves. You're just using it as a convenient way to make progress in your investigation. And I notice if I drift into a daydream, or if I consider a nightly dream, it's all one tapestry of a world and a person. And like a tapestry, there's no real moving parts. They just look like they're causing effects on each other. It's just an impression. So I don't want to give solidity to the pieces that I've invented to conveniently erase them, and then imagine that they're resisting me. And because I've created their separateness in my own investigation to begin with. So I was getting the feeling that I really want to proceed more like I'm waving away smoke and fog, with vigor, but not that there are solid things there that will try to tug and pull against my investigation. I want to see their unreality, but never attribute to them a separate solidity that I invented in the first place.
Okay. If that can be done, all well and fine, and it's a good thing. If they seem to be solid, if some illusion seems to be solid, you still have to overcome it.
Right.
No matter how solid the fog seems to be, you still have to remove the fog from your mind. And, of course, to see that it is not solid, that it is only a figment of your mind, is one of the best steps you can take to removing it.
Well, if I could just hold to that analogy for a moment, I see that the real work really is that I've picked some little guy in the center of that tapestry, and I've invested things that are of the real. I've invested happiness and the sense of its possible loss, and the emotional connection I make is really where I should be. That's just, if anything solid, so to speak, or resisting, that's it seems.
Okay. The gain and loss, etc., is for that pseudo-individual. Is he you?
I certainly hope not.
Find out. Or are you observing him from somewhere else, so to speak? Is that individual your continuous experience?
No, that's the thing, the tapestry just comes in like, it's
Like a
always
daydream.
different every moment.
Like a daydream, coming about and then dreaming another daydream and another daydream. It's different tapestries, as you're calling them, different scenes. But the scenes occur within you. Within the scene, there appears the seer, the seeing, and the object. And you're identifying with one part. The whole scene, though, is in you. Like the whole movie being on the screen. So what are you going to do to abandon the misidentification with a particular character who has gain and loss and pain and pleasure and all the rest?
Well, I mean, I can try to investigate that directly somewhat, but it seems like I want to always wonder who and where I am, really.
That sounds scientific. Putting your love of science to good use. Yes, use that quality of close examination, accepting only the facts that are well proved, and using a good sense of reason. It must make sense. Yes, apply that to your own mind and see who you are. It will not be reasonable to conclude that something that is not continuously present in your experience is yourself, since you already have as a basis of fact the continuous existence that you are. Do not accept anything that's just an hypothesis. It has to be irrefutable. I would assume that you would regard it as poor science when an hypothesis is taken as fact, and then one would build up a whole structure, very theoretical in character, without any experiment to prove it. You already have conducted experiments. It's all the experiences of your life thus far. Also anything that came before, if you remember. You've already conducted a lot of experimentation. All you need to do is draw the proper conclusion.
Well,
Science marches inward.
I enjoy your humor on the analogy, but it does have one other useful thing that for me has always been useful, and another principle in that is you respect the independent corroboration of other investigators when it's a preponderance of agreement. In other words, if sages and seekers throughout all places and times keeps coming back with the same conclusion, that is worthy of a lot of respect too.
Yes, that is definitely the case. Then all you need to do is repeat their experiment. I believe that's how you would approach, and thereby verify what has obviously been stated by those who are more knowing, who've gone before you. Go ahead, Eric.
I guess you mentioned in your talk about actually checking out what you're misidentified with. And also, too, I guess you mentioned to Dave about this, these two, are you two? I didn't kind of meditate a little bit on this two thing, kind of noticing how I take myself to be two things a lot of times. When you're meditating, you're kind of meditating on who you are, and then I notice, I'm taking myself to be, this entity, or this person, or actually it's kind of interesting. And then also too,
But can you be two? This is the question you have to put to yourself. Can you be the self and there be another self? When you're attempting to realize the self, can you be the individual who's apparently limited trying to get to the self? If you thoroughly inquire into him, his identity, and the mind that so conceives is just blown away like clouds that have disappeared into the sky now. What's left is the vast space of pure consciousness. That's not two.
I don't know if it quite goes that far, but I wish.
How much do you wish?
Well, it seems like it has an effect on it. It seems like I keep, it can't be two, like you're saying. And, I start meditating on, okay, well, what's objective? It can definitely not be what's objective. That doesn't make any sense at all. And yet all the time I'm thinking on all this objective stuff. It's kind of strange.
Which objective stuff do you think yourself to be?
Yeah, it's only certain. It's not every objective thing.
Which certain objective stuff do you think you are?
Body, mind, those are the big ones.
Are you the body?
No.
I thought you said you thought. That was a quick turnaround. A moment ago you were saying you take yourself to be the body. I ask you a simple question, are you the body? You say no.
It's a miracle. Sorry.
I think I'm the body sometimes.
At which times do you think you're the body?
There's no set time.
You said it sometimes.
Not like the alarm clock goes off.
You don't have it marked on your calendar, your dress book,
Now the body.
on your computerized schedule to flag your time to misidentify with the body. When do you become the body?
When do I become the body? Sounds like a trick question.
It's actually kind of matter of fact. You said there are times when you misidentify or basically become the body, so I asked you, when do you become the body? Point out a time, any incident when you actually become the body.
Okay. I could, list things, but those are kind of, once they're listed, it's history.
Do you ever become the body?
Seems like I only think of the body, and then you kind of,
So there's no change in existence, no change in the actual identity. You can think a thought that you're somehow connected with the body. But that's just a thought of such. It's made up of thought, substance, imagination. Does not change the fact of your existence. Doesn't modify your existence. Is that evident to you?
Yeah, it seems like I try to meditate on it more. In other words, when I kind of look into that objective thing, and then say, okay, well, could I even be this? And I say, okay, well, if I'm not this, then what am I? And it kind of sometimes is a little, it doesn't seem like I'm anything definable at that point.
Whatever is your nature is ever the same. You won't change your nature. If existence would become anything even the least bit other than what it is, it would be destructible. It would not be actual existence. Existence will not cease to exist. The real will not become the unreal. The self will not pass over into something that is not the self. If you are bodiless at one time and apparently endowed with a body at another time, that being endowed with the body is nothing more than a delusion. Whatever you are always remains. What comes and goes cannot be your identity, cannot be yourself. The body obviously comes and goes. The idea of being associated with it also comes and goes. None of that can have anything to do with your existence. Know the truth of it. The same holds good with everything else objective. You mentioned the mind. It's not with you all the time. Only that which is with you all the time is you or yours. What is it that's there all the time? Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, living, dead. What is it that's there all the time? The unalterable is the immeasurable. Do not, if you're trying to eliminate what's objective from your identity, do not proceed on the idea that the self you're wishing to realize is objective. If you're attempting to eliminate the objective, then you don't want to harbor the idea that the self you're trying to realize is objective. Make your vision non-objective. Do not treat the self as if it were something objective, removed from you, that will come about at another time.
Can you explain more, though, how I would be doing that?
Your question that you initiated dialogue on. Look at the stance of your mind, in the manner in which the question was raised. Can you see how you're treating the self as if it's something objective or removed from you? You're asking the question from the position of the limited individual, who sometimes is caught in the body, sometimes not, etc. But are you? There's nothing wrong with raising the question that way, but I'm saying you want to take the inquiry full circle to make your vision non-objective. Is it clear for you how to proceed?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to take down or remove more ideas.
All right.
So one of those ideas happens to be somehow thinking that the reality comes and goes, and that somehow when I'm practicing, I'm trying to get from point A to reality, or whatever that is, the practicer to...
While on the one hand, it is purposeless and actually self-defeating to assert one's experience or boast of it or etc. On the other hand, and this is pertinent to you, you don't want to artificially put a distance between truth and yourself, between what you already deeply experience and make believe you are some bound person. at a distance from it, or with some wall or obstacle between you and that which you're seeking to realize. If you know better, dwell in that better knowledge. If you really know that you are not the body, cannot be the body, there's no necessity to pretend otherwise.
Seems like the big things are like acting, talking. I don't know, it seems like those things, somehow I think that I can't be the body when the mind and the body are acting for some reason.
You're talking right now, are you becoming the body?
I'm not becoming the body.
Even while speaking right now. So where is the difficulty? Speaking, you're still silent. You're not the body. You're not a portion of it called the mouth that does the talking. The same holds true with all the other limbs, etc., for action. You blinked your eyes just now. Did you become the body? Now you're laughing. Do you become the body?
Okay. So you kind of just really, seems like I should inspect that experience. So you can, does any bodily experience change?
If you thoroughly inquire, you will see that no bodily experience changes your nature, that you are not the body, that you are not in a body, and that you don't even have a body.
That makes it pretty complete.
And that's because he realizes he never ever becomes the body? Is that what you're saying?
His existence does not change. He only needs to know his existence as it is.
Because I've been watching you asking questions. Do you ever become the body? That's what I'm getting at. And he's saying he's not been able to answer. Not once on all those questions did he ever be able to answer that he became the body. That's what you're making clear.
Because it does not happen. We are not born.
I see. We never become. I can see that. Just doing the same thing with Eric. Sorry.
That's fine.
Never became.
परमेवाक्षरं प्रतिपद्यते सयोः वै तदच्छायम् अशरीरम् अलौकितं शुभ्रमक्षरं वेदयते यस्तु सौम्य स सर्वज्ञः सर्वो भवति तदेष श्लोकः.
He who realizes that shadowless, bodiless, colorless, pure, immutable, attains the supreme immutable itself. O amiable one, he again who realizes becomes omniscient and all. Illustrative of this occurs this verse.
विज्ञानात्मा सह दैवैश्च सर्वैः प्राणाभूतानि सम्प्रतिष्ठन्ति यत्र तदक्षरं वेदयते यस्तु सौम्य स सर्वज्ञः सर्वमेवाविवेशेति.
O amiable one, he becomes all-knowing and enters into all who knows that immutable wherein merges the cognizing self, the Purusha, who is naturally a knower, as also do the organs and the elements together with all the deities.
Sat pranam asraja pranachadram kham vayu jyothi apaha prithvi indriyam manaha annam annadvidyam tapo mantraha karma loka lokeshu cha namacha.
He created prana. From prana he created faith, space, air, fire, water, earth, organs, mind, food. From food he created vigor, self-control, mantras, rites, worlds, and name in the worlds.
स यथेमा नद्यः संयमानाः समुद्रायणाः समुद्रं प्राप्यस्तं गच्छन्ति भिद्यते तासं नामरूपे समुद्र इत्येव प्रोच्यते. एवमेवास्य परिद्रष्टुरिमाः षोडश कलाः पुरुषं प्राप्यास्तं गच्छन्ति भिद्यते चासं नामरूपे पुरुषम् इत्येव प्रोच्यते च एषो लोको मृतो भवति तदेष श्लोकः.
The illustration is this. Just as these flowing rivers that have the sea as their goal get absorbed after reaching the sea, and their names and forms are destroyed, and they are called merely the sea, so also these 16 parts, that is, constituents of the all-seeing Purusha, that have Purusha as their goal, disappear on reaching Purusha, when their names and forms are destroyed, and they are simply called Purusha. Such a man of realization becomes free from the parts and is immortal. On this point there occurs this verse.
Ara ivarathanabo kalayasmin pratishthidaha tam vedyam purusham veda yatha mavo mrityuhu parikhyata iti.
You should know that Purusha, who is worthy to be known, and in whom are transfixed the parts, like spokes in the wave of a chariot wheel, so that death may not afflict you anywhere.
तान् होवाचैताव देवाः मिमेतत् परं ब्रह्म वेद नातः परम् अस्ति इति.
To them he said, I know this supreme Brahman thus far only. Beyond this there is nothing.
Te tamarchayantastam hinaha pita yosmaka vidyayaha param param tarayasipi. Nama paramarshibhyo, nama paramarshibhyo.
While worshipping him, they said, You indeed are our Father, who have ferried us across Nescience to the other shore. Salutations to the great seers, salutations to the great seers.